Welcome to my Creative Corner 3, a podcast about quilting, crafting, creativity, with a dash of garden, chatting about current interests and life in my northern town. You can find show notes at mycreativecorner3.com. You can also find all of my social media, how to purchase a virtual cup of coffee, and all events on the website. Please feel free to stop by and leave a comment. I really appreciate everyone who listens. Thanks for stopping by. Welcome to the podcast. Hello, everybody. Are you in the dog days of summer? And yeah, they've come back here. Hot, hot, hot. So humid. It feels like Virginia here. It was hot and humid in Virginia when I visited the kids in July, and the weather in Michigan really hasn't been much different. It's another 90-degree day or close to it. The humidity's been high, and I haven't been like super motivated to get outside and do much. The garden is on its own. The fairy garden is just really coming into its own at the end of the summer. My perennial flower bed that's connected to it it's so pretty. It's all yellow and gold. The wildflowers in the back weren't an utter failure with the direct sowing in the soil. I have California poppies blooming in their pretty orangey gold color. There's some pretty fuchsia color plants. No idea what they are. I'm hoping that some other native plants that I put in the seeds for will come up. But there's also some zinnias and cosmos and some other things that are going to bloom when everything else in the garden is done. Right now, the theme for the perennial bed is yellow. August is the month of yellow. The blues and purples have pretty much finished. The second blooming of poppies didn't last long. And I'm in the yellow gold Rudbeckia. They're not black-eyed Susans, but they're that shape of a flower. Tons of different kinds of coreopsis. I have 2 or 3 back there. And this really tall faux pom-pom shaped, I always called it the faux sunflower. It's a perennial. Super tall this year because they got so much sun and rain. Wow, it's in its glory. It's in its heyday of gold colors, and I just love it. Haven't been out puttering in it. I will do some cleanup and pulling of more weeds. Done a few weed pulling, but there's a bit that I want to try to get out before everything goes to seed in the next few weeks. We are looking at the trees are starting to change a little bit, and I asked a forestry person, why does it happen? Daylight hours are shortening. They started in August of shortening up. And it's been super hot. Even though we've had rain, it's not been quite enough, and the trees are a little stressed. So the early maples are changing colors first and a lot. So hopefully, as it cools down, there'll be less stress, and that usually starts in September. So I've got this fall vibe feel going. I'm noticing everyone's posting their kids' first day of school locally. That starts after Labor Day here. And I have been bitten by the bug of I'm going to follow my rituals. Remember, I talked about that a lot in the lockdown period of rituals. And I feel like this summer I had the ritual of being outside and gardening in nature. We went out on a lot of wildlife rides, did some walking outside, just sunshine, gold, all of the beauty that comes with nature and lots of greenery. So the inside, I've kind of decorated that way with my quilts and with some of the artwork is greens and golds, and some of the same things that stay up all the time did stay up, but I tried to accent it more with that. However, you know what's coming with the fall is going to be more gold and orange and deeper teals and greens, I think. I fell in love with that color over the summer, and I really like it. It looks good through the fall and winter, but I'm going to add a lot of my traditional fall and gold types of decorations. And I'm also going to do some more like decor stuff for the house instead of just like little Halloween pumpkins and decorations. I want to change some of the artwork and get some of my quilts out and get my Tula Pink de la Luna out, which is greens and purples. So I kind of like that whole vibe. So that's what I'm going for. And I'm looking everywhere at Michael's for the Seek Magic Everyday wall art that they had previewed. I just am so excited. I went to Michael's yesterday on a Costco run to Midland, and that's a couple hours south of us. And then we went to check Michael's out, and I didn't see that sign, and it had a little bit from that preview room on Instagram, if you'll remember. I talked about that and nearly broke the internet a few weeks ago when I was at my daughter's. But what I did find was the things to make a Hobbit wreath from. My sister and I have been in love with this. Since we saw it on TikTok, and I found a real lightweight, thin, circular plaque with a hanging device on it, a hanger, and I found a grapevine wreath that fits perfectly over the top, and I'm going to paint the door. So now this is where I'm at, is our Creative Souls things. My sister and I have been talking. You know, if you want to be Lord of the Rings like faithful, you know, Frodo had a door, I think that was a dark green, and there are other door colors in the movie. So it's not so easy to find each one in like one article. But I believe, and if there are people who are more Lord of the Rings savvy than I believe Sam Gamgee's door was yellow. And I believe Frodo's door was green. And I believe that Bilbo's door was red. And I think each door in the movie may have had different colors. Now, I am totally enamored with Sam. I think Sam is my favorite. He's my hero in the stories. And I even just recently purchased a artist who does Sam's speech as a digital download. And I printed it off, and I'm doing a couple different colors, and I'm putting it on, framing it, because I just love her calligraphy, and I love the whole speech, you know, that it fits right now about, you know, moving forward. And so Sam is my favorite, and that the world has lots of things worth fighting for. And yellow, though, is his door. And even if it was gold, I don't know that I would really like that color. And Frodo is my least favorite, but he's my favorite color, which is green, and red always looks good. But I'm kind of looking at where it's going to hang in my house, which would be the entry, and that is a mauvey pink color. Yellow, I don't know. It would look okay. So what I'm thinking, because, you know, greens are my favorite color, is instead of try to make it true to the story and representing a hobbit, I will make it my door, which would be teal. And maybe have a wee bit of teeny sparkles. And there was a mark on the door, and I have done lots of research on it, but I last week did in our Creative Souls segment in my brain, which is going to go on the blog here pretty soon. I took heat transfer vinyl on some of those circles that have been left over from when I first got the Cricut, and I did like an elvish wing looking cutout of the heat transfer vinyl, and I have a Cricut press right now, a heat press. And I thought, now wouldn't they be great, like above where you would glue a knob to open the door as a window/hobbit mark, and just make this a fantasy thing inspired by Lord of the Rings, instead of trying to make it a wreath that would be totally representative of an exact replica. So I'm going to put my own favorite plants and flowers and moss, and I have some mushroom birds that I use at Christmas. I may dig them out and put them on a couple different wreaths that I'm going to be making. And that will be up on social media. And I haven't even started it. This is just the beginning. And if you are totally into making wreaths and want to do something like this, you can look it up on YouTube or TikTok. Just type in tutorial for a Hobbit inspired wreath or Hobbit wreath. And you take the circle plaque and you color it. Mine has grooves in it already, the like paneling, and I'm going to paint those a little darker color to make it look like a door. Some people stain it. I want to do like a light wash and paint, and what's the worst thing that can happen is it won't work. And I am like, I don't know what I'm doing. I totally don't know what I'm doing with paint, but I keep practicing and trying new things. I have a grapevine wreath, and most people put like 4 screws or something on it where you can wire the wreath to the wooden disc. And that's what I'm going to do, and then go through my house and look for all the different things that I have already before I go to the store and buy extra stuff. I have some moss looking things, and I have all kinds of like old flowers, things that could be washed off and used. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to it. The painting will probably start this afternoon. The other thing that I'm really into right now is making and collecting things for dioramas. So I've been going to the dollar store, and I have a couple of wreaths. I haven't shadow box frames. And so that's something I'm going to be working on with Our Creative Souls. I am just taken with miniatures and dioramas, and I don't want to build a dollhouse. I thought it would be super cool to do something even smaller and tinier. And I am just loving it. And then Nerdforge did the book nook, and that is my ultimate goal. But you have to start somewhere and get practice and ideas and things for scale. So I'm kind of liking this enchanted forest feel for Halloween and for the fall decor. Now, the next thing that I'm going to make is I haven't got it yet. I didn't think yesterday when I was at Michael's to purchase a wire wreath form. There's a tutorial on TikTok, and my daughter made it, and it looks phenomenal. And she did it for less than $20, and she said she has enough material for 2 wreaths. She just has to go buy another wire base, and that is the Crescent moon quote wreath that has been going around. It started on where I saw it was Michael's, but it's also on TikTok and YouTube and Etsy. People sell these wreaths, and they're very expensive because you can spend tons of money for what's going on. But you cut a little segment out of your circle to make it a C, and you tape it and you make it safe on the ends to come to a point, and you have a crescent moon shape. Loving the lunar calendar look and crescent moons and all of that for the fall and Halloween. Mine's going to have some really cool stuff on it. I've heard Dollar Tree has tons of craft things now. I was there a couple months ago, and so I know they've been really upping their game, and I want to get some flowers and feathers, and I have some old antique crystal, what they call bobishes, that hung off of candles and chandeliers in Victorian times. I collected weird stuff when I was a teenager, and I have some old Victorian stuff that's kind of creepy cool that I may put on there. I'd like to put mushrooms and things to go with the cottagecore vibe. We'll see what I have. We'll see what I can come up with. And maybe I'll make a couple of these because they look so fun. Super fun. Wreaths are fun to make. And with dollar stores, you can buy all the stuff you need for really cheap. I mean, it wasn't a long time ago when I tried making wreaths for Christmas and stuff. You had $100 invested in it. And that was even before you messed up and broke things or made things not work. And I'm like, I am not into spending lots of money for a lot of craft items. Something like a wreath can be beautiful. Used items, upcycled items look great on them. Vintage items that really have no value currently can be glued on them. It's an awesome way to recycle things. And I like to save my money and spend it on things like fabric and batting and thread, things that are super expensive. And I'm even looking at cutting back on my budget on that because it's just you got to be conscious of your budget and how much do you really need, right? And I have a lot of fabric right now. So those are my current crafty creations. And one thing that I did this week is I tried the Michaels watercolor palette that I bought when I was in Virginia, and I did a test on a Strathmore watercolor paper and tried different grades and values or gradations, I guess, of color. And I really like this paint, and I can't tell you much about it because I ripped the label off. You'll see if you are interested in this. There's lots of different types of watercolors, and you just have to try different ones until you find what you like. And same with the paper. But I love Strathmore paper so much. So I did the test, and this week I'm going to doodle on top of the colors like I've done before, just to see how my micron pens work on some of these different colors and some with the heavy pigment. So we'll see how it works. I'm pretty excited. So I've been real crafty in just little small time segments over the week. And I just felt like last week, I was just so exhausted, and work wrung me out. I was just worn out. I felt wrung out. Here, that sounds better than a sentence. And I felt like I was doing things, but I wasn't super into it or super present because I was so tired. So this week, I felt better. I got more sleep. The heat at night, I think, has been waking me up. I felt less stressed at work. And I just did one or two 15-minute blocks for the Kinship Fusion sampler. And drum roll, please. I finished the 100th block. It's only taking me 3 summers of the 100 days, 100 blocks, and I got all 100 done. Now, the other thing was when I bought the pattern, I was given an email update that there were some other layouts that I could digitally download. And I'm like, oh, I should check, because I have been researching and playing with a couple of ideas on my design wall, but I was not happy. But in the pattern book, the current one, and if you have an old one, you should go to Gnome Angel's website, because she has a couple of ideas that you can download once you put your email in and she knows that you bought it. It's called Dissolve, and it uses exactly 50 blocks. So I can do my 50 blocks each of the pattern, and it comes out to being a nice sized quilt. I think it's 65 by 70. So it's a lap size, not a full twin size. And I might even put extra borders on it to try to make it more of a twin size. So we'll see how it goes. But I want to give these to the twins because I thought this was a super fun quilt. I made it real whimsical. They're going to be 8, so it's not going to be ready for their birthday, but I don't think they'll outgrow the cute little anime faces right away. They're into Squishmallows, which have the same look on the face. And so I want to get that done. And I ordered the background fabric, because if you follow a pattern, you don't have to guess. It says right there. And I went on Fat Quarter Shop. I found some white fabric on sale. I ordered enough for both quilts, and it's a fabulous price, and it should be shipping soon. So I finished all 100 blocks. I divided them out. Now I'm playing around with layout on my design wall and arranging colors and trying to make it look a little less overwhelming, but it'll have a lot more white on there to give your eye a place to rest. And there is an overall dissolve type of feel to the rows. They go from wide to narrower. So I'm really liking this, and I'm happy with that. I was not happy with some of the other test layouts that I did. And I'm thrilled that they have it so there's exactly 50 in each quilt. So it'll be evenly divided. Then I won't have to make more. That was the whole point, right? I don't want to make more. I wanted to use what I have. And I might have to make it with a header or a footer or a white header foot strips to make it rectangular, even longer for a twin size quilt, but we'll see. I may just say, hey, this is good, and send it on. We'll see how I feel as I get going, because I'm at the phase of every quilt when I get all the blocks done and I start trying to piece the top together, where it becomes this project that's probably what some people call, the middle school phase, the teenager phase, the awkward phase that the quilt goes through, just like I did in life. And I'm not real happy with it, and I'm like, why didn't I do this? Why didn't I think of color better? Why didn't I use collections better? Why didn't? And I didn't. And I did for lots of reasons. I wanted to make this a scrap quilt. It was a practice in fussy cutting and a practice in trying to do scrap quilts. I have so many fabrics here that I need to get over the fact that not everything doesn't exactly go together, because some people have massive stashes and their fabric collections are huge, so they can make scrap quilts that have a less chaotic look. But mine still look chaotic because I'm still not confident in my choices for making scrap quilts. So I'm feeling much better about it. I'm pretty excited, but that's going to go to the back burner now. So what is left on my 90-day challenge, since I'm coming in on the end of 1 month? Well, kinship, I want to piece that and get the top done, or into 2. The second one is a Irish chain that the free pattern is on Kristen Esser's website. It's an Irish chain. And I started this week of piecing that together. I want to see, it's in her free patterns, and I want to tell you the exact name of her pattern. It's called Loyal Heights Irish Chain Quilt, a free pattern. And she used a collection. I'm doing scraps, but every center of my Irish chain block is one fabric. It is a dragonfly fabric that my granddaughters really fell in love with. So I think I'm going to have to keep this particular quilt for me and use the scrap leftovers in some English paper piecing and hexagons, because that's where they saw it, and make them each something with this with a fabric and a hexagon flower on it, so they can have little pieces of that fabric, because it's really pretty. It's an iridescent sparkle fabric on a black, and then I have a cream color background for the white space and negative space in the Irish chain, and it's an irregular sized Irish chain with a larger center, smaller strips, and then small colors that go in this. And it's scrappy, but I'm doing it a controlled scrappy as much as I can. I'm not adding a billion colors. I had several fabrics that I picked, and I have a lot of them, and I'm going to go as far as this background cream color fabric. 49 of the solid 6.5-inch cream squares and 50 of the blocks will make it a roughly the twin size, which is what the pattern said. But I don't know if I have that much cream. I will take it as far as I can, and my goal is to have that that project, because it's at the awkward adolescent phase too. I'm not confident in my scrappy corner colors, even though I got a lot of input on it, and everybody's who are good scrap quilters said that is a good theme. I'm just not confident that it's going to look okay, but it's the awkward phase. 2 quilts in the awkward phase and the middle school phase. That's probably why I'm stressed, right? Oh my gosh. Things you realize when you're talking on the podcast. And then the third thing is that antique, okay, it's a 10-year-old quilt that I started with a pattern I designed myself, and I never quilted it. So maybe in 90 days I can get that one I want quilted. The other 2 will go on. And then I have a couple of quilts of my mom. And I have a teeny tiny one last row of a baby quilt, customer quilt, and I'll be caught up with all of my deadlines. And then the next challenge when winter gets here is to bind the stack of quilts that I have quilted for myself, and bind them up when the weather's cold and this house is cold and drafty, and I'll have a lovely quilt on my lap. So those are my goals, plus all of the craft things. So one thing I wanted to tell everybody, if you haven't seen it, I'm going to start this once I'm done piecing the Irish chain. Hopefully I can do it in October. Is a little bats and boo little wall hanging from Fat Quarter Shop. And it is a 9-block quilt. It's a beautiful little cute Halloween quilt. And they've got all the blocks out now. There's 3 blocks in it. And it's so adorable. And I am definitely wanting to make the bat block and the pumpkins. I'm not 100% sold on the center, which I might do something of my own design in the center, but I still have that black and orange fabric that I bought from Angel at Halo Inspirations, and it's so cute. So I'm going to use it for those blocks, and then I'll have to decide what I want to do in the center. I'm not 100% sold on that. It's a free pattern, and I think if you're into Halloween and want a cute quilt that's super cute and looks easy to make, check out the Bats and Boo Mystery Quilt at Fat Quarter Shop. Print them off while they're available. There's also a cross stitch, which is the same design, only it's translated into cross stitch if you're into that, because it's super cute. It's so cute. I thought about maybe I could get some cross stitch going. Okay, let's be real. I've got enough going on. I don't need to start anything new. And I've done cross stitch, and it's the thing that I had the longest UFO for. So I keep reminding myself that yes, don't start another cross stitch. You may not finish it. And then I have cast on my elementary wrap. I'm joining Kristen of Simple Handmade Every Day podcast and Francis of the Off Kilter Quilt podcast. And this is a really beautiful Pearl Soho pattern. It's a stockinette wrap. It's not like a full-size shawl. And they have a beautiful yarn that if you go to their website, they have the pattern in the yarn, and I think it's like 18.5 inches wide, and I can't remember how long, 50, 60, 70, somewhere in that park. But I want to tell you the story of a yarn I hoarded, and I decided this was the project. So I want to say close to 10 years ago. It may not be that long, but it's over 5 and less than 10. And when you get old, in your 50s, you kind of just guess because, 7 years feels like, a year ago, 2 years ago, yet a lifetime ago. So I really love nice yarn, just like I really love top-notch fabric. But the is I hate spending that kind of money for it. So I decided, would I really get that much joy out of spending that kind of money for yarn? And I have done some really nice projects with nice yarn. And I decided when I went over to a local yarn shop / quilt shop in a town near me, I really wanted to buy some yarn. And they were having a sidewalk sale where it was a D-stash where customers would put yarns out, and I bought yarn from customers too in their D-stash sale. But this yarn is beautiful. It's called Transitions, and it's cotton and alpaca, I believe, is the fiber content. And it says 1 skein, it's 150 grams, will make a shawl. And I'm a big woman, and so I know it's probably going to be more like a dishcloth or a hanky around my neck, but I wanted it so bad. It's so beautiful. It goes from purple gray to a beautiful plummy color to a kind of burgundy color, and it transitions, like we would call it, almost like an ombre feel now. And they still make this yarn. It's by, I don't remember what company. I'll try to put a link in the show notes. But I got it home and I looked at it, and it's like 4 ply of it's not wrapped plies. You pull it through this little hole in the box, and the plies immediately all fall apart. And then I looked at the pattern. that was a free pattern to go with that particular yarn, and I freaked out and I went overwhelmed. I went, no way. I spent $40 because the tag is still on that. $40 probably 6 to 7 years ago, maybe 10. And, with inflation, that's still a lot of money for 150 grams of yarn for me, because I decided that this would be the perfect project to use it on. I didn't think I would be able to follow a pattern really well with, and I wanted it more than just like, I'm not going to make a pot holder with this $40 yarn or a hat or mittens. I want something that can be used and treasured because it's very expensive. And I had the intention to make a wrap, but I have trouble sometimes getting lost in knitting patterns, just like most of us do. And if it's complicated, then, which this one was kind of a triangle shaped one, I knew I would get lost in the pattern. I'm better at doing crochet for those kinds of things. So I decided the elementary wrap was perfect because it's just a stockinette pattern. You knit on the front, you purl on the front, knit on the back, and then they have a little edge to help keep your yarn flat, and you will block it at the end. And I thought, okay, I'm done hoarding this. This is the yarn. Do you think I could find it? Oh my goodness. I spent probably 15-20 minutes going through my stuff, reorganized, and then of course I it used to be here, it used to be here. Oh, I found it, and I have probably 4 inches just knitting in the evening, maybe 2 rows, maybe 4 rows, however much I feel like doing, that my brain lets me do or my fingers let me do. And I'm really happy. So we've all jumped on doing this as a Zen meditative centering project. Or as you know, I like to call them fidgets. Things to keep my hands busy in the evening so I can pay attention to a longer show. My brain just kind of goes squirrel. You know how it is with the ADHD brain, or neurodivergent. It seems to be the new word going around. But, if I have something to help keep my hands busy, because I hate just sitting. I just hate sitting, even though I can't walk and do as much activity as I used to. So I'm doing the elementary wrap. Why didn't you just cast on your knit stuff? I had to alter the pattern, is like cast on 120 with the fingering yarn they used. I think mine is fingering, but maybe DK weight. So I went through and I did a swatch. I actually swatched, measured how many stitches per inch and how wide the pattern says this project will be. And then I altered the number of stitches that I cast on. I don't remember how many it is, but if you're not going to use their yarn and you're just going to follow the pattern, that's how I figured the math out. And let's hope for the best, because, I don't really know how wide it's going to be. I think it's close, It also talks about using circular needles. So since my yarn is DK, I used the recommended needle size to get how many stitches per inch. And lo and behold, it worked. But it also says use circular needles. And I don't have any circular needles in that size. But since it's going to be only about 18 and a half, I just went ahead and used straight needles. I have a collection of vintage needles that came from my mom's neighbor growing up, her estate sale. And I love using them. I think of her every time. So that is the knitting project I'm doing. And like I said, I have a few crochet ideas for over winter, probably to use up the scraps I have on hand. A couple of the simple, I can't remember the Jane. That's what it's called, the Jane shawl. I made about 6 of them last year. I want to use up the yarn I have and make some more of those just for fun to give away to friends and family, or more for me. I don't know if nobody cares to have them. The other thing I want to make is I downloaded a cute little turtle, and then I remembered last year I bought this pumpkin fox. Oh, yes, I need to get some orange yarn. So maybe when I go to the Dollar Tree, I'm going to see if they have orange yarn and make this cute little, it's a pumpkin, but it has a little fox face on it. Crochet. Yes, I want to do that. Halloween, Thanksgiving, I have a couple of months for this cute little project. So I've got projects projects, and I am slowly doing them. And I actually have been getting back into my rhythm. I think the biggest problem that I have faced over the summer is trying to feel like I'm back into my pre-pandemic routine, which I loved that routine where I would get up in the morning, I had a cup of coffee, a little bit of social media, meditation, deep breathing. Then I would long arm, maybe sew for 15 minutes because I get up a couple hours, 2.5 hours before I have to be to work. Well, I kind of like got all over the place in the morning. And so I'm feeling like I'm back into that routine with then planning on the after work workout for 15 minutes. And, it's coming on. I think that has been where I feel like I've been fumbling around all summer with it. And it's been a hard transition going from being in lockdown and working from home for about 18 months to going back to the office during the summer when I feel kind of scattered because of summer and feeling like I have a million things I need to do. And because we only have like 120 days of summer truly up here. So I think that's really been the problem. I'm feeling a lot better about the routine and getting back into the routine of the office and seeing the clients face to face and doing things face to face more and more. We're not 100% back to face because of the Delta variant. And, mask wearing at the office is still, in healthcare, that's what we do. But it's also been a difficult transition to not, when you're at home, you don't have to wear a mask that much, except when you go out. But at work, I'm having to wear it more and more. That's also been part of the transition. So it's been an interesting summer. I thought it would be like, woohoo, I'm going to be back to the routine, and it's going to be just a couple weeks of a bumpy transition time. No, it's been all summer. And here we are, the fall coming, the mental September New Year, because I always feel like New Year should be in September. And I'm just feeling like now I'm getting back to the routine. So it's okay. That's where I've had to just come to the conclusion that it's okay. I didn't expect that it would take this long. And I have kind of fumbled around over the summer with trying to get things done and do a routine. And I almost missed a deadline for a long arming project, which really upset me because I didn't feel well. And I don't really know if it was allergies or a cold or just summer heat. I don't know. I wasn't really that sick, and I didn't have COVID and don't have COVID. But it's just one of those things where you're like, you don't feel well. I think it was allergies because I had some vertigo spells over the summer when we have had the haze from the West Coast with all of the smoke and stuff coming through the area. And it pretty much blotted out the sun for several days, and it's come again this week. But overall, with all of that said, I am feeling like I'm back on track, and I am working my programs, working my routines, embracing the rituals that I have set over the last year, and seeing my friends and family. I've had coffee with some of my best friends. I've visited my family, and I'm feeling really good. I'm feeling really good about all of it, and I hope that we can continue to have face-to-face connections and not have everything virtual, even though I didn't mind it, but I realize that it shouldn't be like that 100%. It's not healthy for us, right? We need to be with people, and I could easily become a hermit. And I don't think that I want to live my life that way, right? But what's super cool is I have a workshop coming up in October. So I'm going through all of my quilts and I'm getting all of my slides updated. So I have a huge project to work on that in the next couple of weeks, and I'm very excited. Hopefully, it'll be the beginning of fun things, of continuing to teach quilting, which I enjoy doing, and sharing how I get things done and how I can balance a full-time job and do some crafting and do a podcast and quilt, and customers are not as many as they used to be, but that's okay. I'm swapping doing that for all the fun crafts that I'm doing, and it's all right. If I get I have a couple customers that still come to me, but we're all in different places right now with the pandemic and finances and all of that. And having a break from a lot of customer quilts, especially over the summer, is good because then I can get my quilts done, and I'm so excited. So what have you been up to? Have you had a transition somewhere like I have of trying to get back into a routine and all of the feels about that? And of course, we have just so much going on in the world right now that has stirred up a lot of emotion. And yeah, I feel like I'm getting to a point where I understand why I feel the way I do about a lot of things. What are you working on? Are you working on the elementary wrap? Have you started your fall and Christmas projects? Let me know in the comments or the show notes, which you can find at mycreativecorner3.com. Now, the other thing is I've had some people buy me a virtual cup of coffee through Ko-fi or my Etsy shop. And I want to say thank you so much, Barb, and to Jess, and all of you who have purchased me a virtual cup of coffee. Every time I'm drinking a coffee, I think of you and your support of the podcast and the website. If you want to check it out, it's Ko-fi, ko-fi.com. You can find all of these links at the website, and feel free to give me a comment about what you're doing and what you're thinking and what you thought about the podcast. Other things, I'm still working on trying to grow the podcast a little more, as well as my YouTube channel, and share it with a friend. I'm hoping to educate people on podcasts and where to find podcasts. I'm just shocked at the number of people who really still don't understand how they work. So share the podcast. It helps me reach more people so that we can continue the conversation even well beyond the podcast. You have a most wonderful week. I hope that you have found some time to do the things that you love, visit your family, and work on a really, really meaningful creative project that makes you happy this week. Be creative and quilt on, everyone.